Within these pages are bits and pieces and stories that reveal Steve Hardison. There are stories about Hardison's childhood and family of origin, the people and disciplines that shaped his thinking, and the path that led to his coaching. There are principles that are fundamental to his coaching. There are stories from people Steve has coached. These stories are the warp and woof of this book. They approximate as much as possible stepping into Hardison's office and experiencing his coaching. Beyond that, there are stories of Steve Hardison, the man. Stories that delight, stories that evoke a giggle, or even a belly laugh. Stories that baffle, and stories that astound. There are stories that leave readers inspired to live big and bold, alight with the fire of their own possibility. Perhaps we, like LaMarche, can start to understand Hardison through these stories. Or perhaps we will understand him when we read about the things that nearly crushed him. Or perhaps we will never totally understand this enigmatic force, this Tasmanian devil of passion and power. Perhaps we don't need to. Perhaps all we need to do is inhale some of his energy. Steve's innate confidence may have taken a hit, but no one other than Steve noticed it. He still had his swagger, certainty, and arrogance. That is as fixed in Steve as his blood type. Consider an incident that occurred when Steve was in 8th grade. He was walking down the hall at North Davis Junior High when he spied a boy flirting with his girlfriend. Infuriated, Steve walked up to this boy, who was much bigger than Steve, with his dukes in fighting position. Steve demanded to know what he was doing. Next, Steve barked, "Do you want to fight?" Thinking his rival would back down. The boy landed an uppercut right in Steve's jaw. Steve's bottom teeth went through his tongue. There was blood everywhere. One punch had taken Steve out. Indomitable as ever, Steve spat out, "Have you had enough?" Steve vaulted from his chair, grabbed Deuce by the shirt with both hands and roared, "If you had any idea who I was, you wouldn't ask me such a stupid question." Steve kicked his chair with his exploding energy. Then Steve brought the volume down and the intensity up. It was far more unnerving. "Listen, I am Deuce Lutui. I am the best offensive lineman in the NFL. That's who I am." Steve stood up, smiled, and said in a conversational tone, "Deuce, we're out of time. I have a client coming in shortly." Deuce looked dazed. He stepped outside the office and slid into his sandals. "Deuce," said Steve, "if you got that inside of you, your whole world would change. The first time I went to Steve Hardison's house, I was with Steve Chandler's ACS, Advanced Client Systems Group. As much as I wanted to be present, I was in my mind about meeting this $200,000 coach. I'm going to walk into his house and I'm going to levitate, right? So mused Devin Bandison. What was it like to coach with Steve Hardison? There's talk on the street. He yells, he's intense. He throws people into swimming pool. He will see into your soul. You will be transformed. He is like no other human being on the planet. Of course, people exaggerate. He has never thrown a client into a swimming pool, and you won't levitate. Karan Rai has also had a seatbelt wearing experience with Steve. He says, I had gone to Yale Business School. I started on Wall Street. I was the CEO of a big company and the president of a second company. I was flying around the world on my own little plane. I had a house on the beach. I had a beautiful wife. I had a healthy child. I didn't go to Steve because I didn't know how to be successful. I went to Steve because I had done the things that I thought would make me successful. And I was miserable. My reason for going to him was to help me redefine success. I knew how to play this game called success. I had played it. I had won it. And I had lost. Obviously, I was playing the wrong game. I distinctly recall sitting with him one day and saying, Steve, I think I'm in too deep. I think I'm making too much money. I'm too vested. I've been doing this for too long. I see my path. Another 10 or 15 years of doing this, and I'm all set. I think I'm stuck. Without blinking, he said, just burn it all down and build it again. This time, the way you want to. I said, what are you talking about, old man? He was deadly serious. When it comes to saying your document, there is speaking and there is speaking. If you want your document to have the power of transformation, you energize it. Steve says, when I say, I am the universe, I am going into my mind and picturing the universe. I see it expanding. I have a visceral connection with the expansion. Like the universe, I am constantly expanding who I am, what I know, and what I see. I am the universe. I dance with my document. I feel it. I experience it. It's so hard to explain Steve Hardison. If somebody has never met him, it's almost nearly impossible. I've never told Steve this, but when I tell people about Steve, I tell them I have given him a moniker. The most intense human I have ever met. I don't know. I don't know how he does it, but he creates things. He creates things for himself and for other people. He attracts people. If Steve wanted to wield his powers for evil, he most certainly could. He could start a cult tomorrow, but he uses his power for good. I think he has the ability to do in life what I do on stage. As a mentalist and illusionist, I don't come from, I'm magical, look at me. Rather, I say to my audience, I'm magical. And you are too. That is how Steve lives his life, helping others to find their magic.